Salutations. I thank you for being here once again. Today I would like to speak about the controversial Nick Fuentes and his interview with longtime talking head Piers Morgan. One could very much see and feel the generational divide between the two. Piers Morgan he looks much older than I initially thought. There's nothing wrong with looking mature. It happens to us all. It's important is to be in good health, but back to the main subject is one could see the difference between the two. For Piers Morgan, when in his formative years, he would have grown up in an England where I don't think he questioned his position in society and that the future would be equal to him as it would to be anyone else, perhaps even with certain advantages. For Nick Fuentes and for many other young men in Western countries, especially us English-speaking countries, everything that we have grown up with and have seen, whether it be through television programming, movies, music, from academia, is that the future belongs to everyone except you men. That the bad actions of men in the past is something that we're supposed to take as if we were guilty of it ourselves, yet we wouldn't treat any other group of individuals in that way. So it's only natural that there would be a level of pushback. But it is irrational to think that young men, even just the thought of having positions of leadership, even within their own family, if they aspire to be a father and want to be a head of household and a protector, provider, all that you are condemned just for the very thought of it. So, of course, I don't agree with everything Fuentes says, and of course I've not seen everything he has produced, but the interview, of course, is making its circulation. It's being spoken about by many, myself included. But I believe the main point, more than anything else, is there is this divide. And this happens throughout history. A younger cohort will be misunderstood by an older cohort of people. And it's part of life, and the pendulum of time often will balance things out. And it goes from one extreme to the next. The difficulty is figuring out or knowing when will that pendulum center itself to some sort of moderate middle, and hoping that one arrives there sooner than later and in the most peaceful manner possible. All in all, I believe even with the elections that occurred in the United States in 2024 that one could see by the numbers that young men feel a bit as if they're being kicked while they're down. So if they are not given the opportunity to show their talents and to succeed and to advance themselves within what is their abilities, they may continue to get more angry. So it's not that anyone should be getting preferential treatment. It is more so we should try and sustain a merit-based system in employment and in school and in life in general. One thing I have noticed that is not mentioned about Nick Fuentes, even though most people know his family heritage, is that the man still qualifies as a minority. The fact that he has Italian heritage, Southern Italian heritage, given to the history of ancient Greece and Rome, many people in the Mediterranean, Italians included, do have DNA mixed with North Africans and that of the Middle East, much like there is European blood in North Africa and in the Middle East because of the time period when, whether it be Carthage, the Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Romans, that was the center of the Western world. Trade and commerce and families intermarrying for political gain and whatnot happened all the time. And of course, he does have Mexican heritage, which I think is no more than 2 or 3 generations prior to him. And most people from Mexico, even if they look entirely of one race or the other, they do have indigenous genetics. You can call it Native American, indigenous, there's a lot of terms for it. So even with those who may not have any physical attributes that one would see on surface level of having indigenous heritage, most Hispanics in general or Latin Americans have it one way or another. So it is unique that we have this young man who seems to understand that he has a minority status, one, because he's also a practicing Catholic, and Catholics are a minority religion within the United States. But despite him coming from minority groups of Irish, Mexican, and Italian, what he sees in himself is he sees a man of predominantly European heritage. He embraces the Anglophone culture. He had a very traditional American Yankee upbringing, and he believes that should be sustained and protected. It has as much right to exist into the future as every other demographic in the United States or every other demographic throughout the Western world. So, what I guess you could say there's an irony to the fact that we see a minority sticking up for cultural norms that one would think would be coming from the demographic majority. So I believe he views himself as part of the demographic majority, and he certainly has every right to, and he does in the cultural sense. But he is not alone. There are many Latin Americans in the United States and in Canada that once you get to that second and third generation, whether they have a Spanish last name or an Italian last name or Portuguese last name, English may be their only language. They have assimilated to the point in which that despite having a minority status, they just comfortably view themselves as part of their nation's majority. So one would have to go through, say, the Sunbelt states especially, because last I checked, it is the southern states of the U.S. and the West Coast that are the most diverse. And by Sunbelt, I believe it's defined, say, from Virginia down to Florida and all the way out west to past Texas to New Mexico and Arizona. I guess you could consider also California, but California would view itself more as the West Coast than it would the Southwest or the Sun Belt. All in all, that's where one can see it all the time. This is not a new thing either. This has been the normalcy for some time. Linda Carter, who rose to fame, I think, in the 60s or 70s, tall, blue-eyed woman. She is of Mexican heritage. Joaquin Phoenix, the actor, is Puerto Rican. And there's an endless examples of others who are minorities, but one might not think it because what you see at face value is a person with European features. But once again, it is a unique happening at present of the rift between generations that one can see with these cohort of young men in the West who believe the future belongs to them as much as it belongs to every other group. And, well, we will find out what the future will entail, won't we? So I will end this video, and I thank you for listening. Until next time.